Before we get started on this video, for context, there are 3 other videos that you need to see. About a month ago, I did one called Temporary Representation, and that 3-minute skit got a reaction from Biggerford Entertainment on his weekly stream. They are in the description if you want to see it. And then next, it was my reaction to Biggerford Entertainment's reaction, which I did. This all happened a month ago, and me and Onzo had a sit down to talk about it, and this video is about that. Onzo?
What's up, guys? It's Biggerford Entertainment here, chilling with Chill. And I know we have this recast T'Challa debate that we're going on, but it's only a debate. There's no hatred or whatsoever. It's pretty much all in fun for me anyways. But as I said in the video, there are a few that kind of make it a little bit annoying. But when it comes to me and Chill, nah, it's always just good conversation. So I just wanted to react a little bit to some of the stuff that Chillmonger said in his reaction to me, so you guys can get a little bit more of why I think that they did a proper job.
Temporary representation is the beef that I have, and it comes in forms of even changing people's faces with CGI to make them an animal or a genie or a soul and whatnot.
Well, that's where it comes
All right,
up.
pause it there, Chill. So first off, I'll say I personally don't have a problem with the race bending stuff. I get it. And Chill said temporary representation, but at least we're getting representation though, right? We can't sit here and act like, they're doing all these movies for us and all kinds of stuff. So at this point, I think we need to accept what they're giving us, because if we don't, we won't get anything.
What they would have done with Chadwick Boseman.
And I don't want the stories. I want the character that is Shuri's brother to elevate in popularity over the generations. Superman style. We saw him. Here's this cute graphic that I posted. Up top, you can see all the cartoon versions of Superman throughout the 50s all the way to the current day. And then down there, you can see all the live action guys who played Superman. And it's always Clark Kent. It's always Superman after every reboot. Superman superhero franchise gets reboot often. First time we got him in a live action movie, we got T'Challa as Black Panther.
So pause it there. You said the stories, right? First off, they haven't even cracked the stories with the real T'Challa, right? I'll call him the real T'Challa because that's what you guys say.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So they have, that's because what you guys say, but they haven't even scratched the surface with him. So if you're saying you want the stories, you can still get the stories. You can get all the stories that you want to, or what they did in the comic book. You can have all of those stories. You can get those.
It's less so about the story. It's more so about the physical depiction of that straight character who is constantly there. It's not really about how he did this one thing to that one villain. Now somebody else can do it. Shuri will do the same thing. Don't worry. Or the T'Challa will do the same thing. It's really not about the stories. To me, it's more so about that guy existing on screen, his portrayal, and not going, a few years without him.
So when they named the kid T'Challa, you can still get that portrait of him. You can still get all of that, though. That's what I'm saying. Whatever you think you want, I feel you can still get with this T'Challa. Now, if they go completely 180 and do something different, then I'll come on here and I'll say, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I think that they can take T'Challa Jr. And I'm just saying it so that we can distinguish, right? But they can take T'Challa Jr. and they can actually make him what Chadwick Boseman's character was supposed to be. So they don't even skip a beat. Like you would be thinking, oh yeah, okay, that's what Chadwick Boseman was supposed to be, and he could be that character.
But you see how in the graphic over here with all these Supermans, it's constantly Superman, Clark. They never say, oh, let's just do Clark's son for a minute. It's constantly the same to Superman. If you do the child right now and you go, okay, let's use Junior. Junior's not going to be part of the reboot. Junior's going to be like some forgotten character who they don't use.
But you see, I don't think that when we get the movie, they're going to ever call him Junior. They're going to call him T'Challa, right? To me, it was a way of recasting to have people not compare Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa to the new actor T'Challa, because at the same time, there's a thin line where you could say, well, he's not as good as Chadwick, but it's not Chadwick's.
That doesn't stop this guy's casting and this guy's casting and everyone on the screen's casting.
No, it hasn't stopped their casting, but none of them died.
One of them did.
Oh, well, Christopher Reeves, yeah, but I mean, by the time he died, right, the generation that watched his Superman was a totally different generation. So you wouldn't have got that comparison because I know there's like my son and them, they've never seen that original Superman movie. I
I'm just
believe that.
saying I'm saying we. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry, go
Yeah,
finish.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Val Kilmer, he's unable to do the Batman, and we know that Michael Keaton was recasted with Val Kilmer. No one's saying it's disrespectful that Val Kilmer isn't there, and how dare Michael Keaton, come back. We really don't think that way when it comes to these superheroes.
Okay, so when Michael Keaton or Val Kilmer was recasted, it was because Michael Keaton didn't want to do it anymore. They had a plan to do a Batman movie, and he didn't want to do it. He read the script and it was like, you know what, this is not the Batman that me and Tim Burton created, so I don't want to do it. So obviously they're going to recast there, right? You talk about Superman, Clark Kent, and then you have Brandon Routh. That was like 20 years before they recasted him again. So there's kind of a difference there when you're talking about someone who just died within the last 5 years of making this movie, or from the first movie to this one, and someone who passed away 20 years before they actually did a new Superman.
In the present day, the Flash movie is using Michael Keaton's Batman. Now, Val Kilmer just recently, he was in a movie in Top Gun, wasn't he?
So he was in Top Gun.
So he was able to do movies, and it's so soon that he's just unable to become the Batman back in the new Flash. It's not a death; it's a throat cancer. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. Is it really throat cancer?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I don't know what it is, I probably shouldn't say just because that's wrong. But like whatever it is, it's a health concern, similar but different, but similar to Chadwick Boseman, and it's not 20 years later. It just happened. He was able to act a year ago, and now he's not. And it's okay that Michael Keaton, even though Val Kilmer was supposed to be Batman after Michael Keaton, and George Clooney's part of this too, but they went back to Michael Keaton, and it's just okay. It's about the character. That's my take on it. And you're telling me that you need to pass. And
so here's the thing. Now you're talking about Val Kilmer, and you're talking about George Clooney, and you're talking about Michael Keaton, right? Which Batman out of the three was the best?
I don't even know, but that's subjective. Which one do you think is the best? Michael Keaton? Let's go with Keaton.
It's definitely Michael Keaton, right?
All right.
So I'll say, and you're right, it is subjective. I agree with that 100%. But majority say it's Michael Keaton, right? So let's just put that out there right there.
Which T'Challa is the best? We'll never know because his iteration of T'Challa transcends any version we will not recast.
But we've had over how many years of Superman, though? We've only scratched the surface with T'Challa, right?
Yeah, more reason to get him more.
So now you're the only, in these Supermans, right? The only one that actually played was Brandon Routh. Brandon Routh actually played the Christopher Reeve Superman. Everyone else was a totally different take on Superman. Now you're talking about putting T'Challa in there, right? Who is going to be the same T'Challa that Chadwick played. So there's gonna be that comparison.
I would love that, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the Rhodey recast and even Thunderbolt Ross recast. I'm fine with conversations about, oh, this actor performed well, this actor performed well. It's all about the character being on screen because it's that important.
So if he's that important and they cast wrong and get somebody in there that is absolutely garbage as T'Challa, that's going to be an issue, right?
It's a risk I'm willing to take, and it's an unlikely risk. How many bad castings has Marvel done?
I can't think of off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
The big ones are good. The big ones, like Captain America, Thor, and even what's it called with Chadwick Boseman. It was a good casting that time.
100%. But look how long it took them to do Black Panther. So I'm sure they had a lot more time to scout and figure out who they were going to make. Now that the fact that they're going to do a Black Panther 3, which could be in the future where T'Challa is older, right? Now you have a chance to go and vet a lot of these actors or who you think would be perfect for the role. So you have more time to do that. We're still going to get a T'Challa. It's going to be the same one that could have all the characteristics. And I'm not talking about the story. I'm talking about the characteristics of the T'Challa from the comic, the one that Chadwick Boseman was supposed to have. We can do that. You can have that. And if they do that, then people aren't going to be like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? So I think at the end of the day, it was the right choice.
And that this will happen in the year 2020 6, Black Panther 3 comes out, the T'Challa is a little bit older and he gets to act just like comic book T'Challa. The thing is, this character, this new child, son of T'Challa, is not going to carry over into the reboot. When things reboot again, which is they're bound to do, all of these reboots, look at the screen again of how many times they reboot Superman. When Black Panther reboots with the entire MCU, they will never use the son of T'Challa. So there's no carrying over or crossing from like the fandom for that character actually dies. He's not going to be.
And I completely agree with you on that. But we as comic book fans are going to know that the T'Challa is different. But normies are going to see T'Challa, right? They're not going to see T'Challa Jr. They're going to see T'Challa.
Why? They're not going to watch Black Panther 2? They're going to only watch Black Panther 1 and 3 and not put it together?
They are going to watch it, but they don't really care enough about the comic book or comic books to be like, well, that's not my T'Challa. They're not going to care. The only thing they're going to see is T'Challa, and we have to be honest with ourselves and and understand that when they make these movies, they're making it for the normies. They put comic book references and little hints and Easter eggs in there for us comic book fans. But the normies are the one that they're making the movies to make it a broader audience. So those people aren't going to care.
Got you.
The recast T'Challa argument is just starting to. It feels like the Zack Snyder stuff.
When you compare it to Zack Snyder, there's an undertone that it's something unacceptable. Yeah, explain this one first, Anzo. The Zack Snyder stuff.
Okay, so the Zack Snyder stuff, and I'll explain what I mean by the. It seems like the same thing, right? So the Zack Snyder stuff, they fought to get their Snyder Cut movie, right? They got their Snyder Cut movie. Then they were fighting for the Snyderverse, right? What happened is they said, James Gunn and them said, okay, Snyderverse is done. It's over, right? The minute they said that, it's over. Now to go there and sit there and be like, Snyderverse, we want the Snyderverse, bring back the Snyderverse, it's not going to happen. So you're wasting your breath. It's the same thing with the T'Challa stuff. It's recast. Well, we got Black Panther 2, and they did what they did. So they can't recast him in that way that you want him to do. He's dead, right? Now, you could say maybe a multiverse stuff or something like that. But then again, is that the real Chadwick? Is that the real Black Panther that we got from the original? No, it's going to be a different one.
I can still say recast. All we saw was a body get flown up. That could be a Skrull. There's a lot of ways in the science fiction genre. Are you kidding me? They can just be like, how could you believe that I died? I had the heart-shaped herb inside of me. I just faked my death. I had to do it because of this grand conspiracy, and no one could know, even my family. But wow, T'Challa, you're really secretive. Damn, you faked your whole death just so that you can weed out the mole inside Wakanda. There's a lot of ways in this story. Characters die, okay? Yes. Electro died, and Jamie Foxx seems to be perfectly fine in the Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm sure Tony Stark will be back, and everyone, like Captain America's really old, right? One day he'll be young again. So the death thing can be reversed. So it's not ridiculous. Plus the Snyderverse, they got a Snyder Cut. And so something did happen from that protest. And I'm calling it a protest just so that we have one word that we can synchronize us. We're both protesting.
So yes, they did get what they wanted, but did they really get it because of them? No, they got it because HBO Max was launching and they needed something for HBO Max. That's the only reason why they got it. If it wasn't for that, then they wouldn't have got it. Look, we have the release the air cut stuff, right? And it's not as loud, but it's there. But they're like, no, we're not doing it, right? Unless they have a reason to do it, they're not going to do it. Because what that does now, right? Especially when you have these movies that had studio involvement that didn't do good, then you're going to go and release the original cut and it's better, then it's going to show that these studios were wrong. And the one thing these studios don't want to do is let anybody know that they were wrong. This is why they hide the numbers for Justice League. Zack Snyder's Justice League. This is why you don't get the exact numbers of streaming and how good it did. I mean, I've heard some streams where they said it's really good. Then I heard somewhere it was like it didn't do good at all, right? So we'll never know those real numbers because studios don't like to admit when they were wrong, right? So that's what I'm saying. So yeah, they could try something like you said. Maybe let's say it's a Skrull, but it has to make sense. And that wouldn't make sense because they had Chadwick Boseman in, I guess, in a room where he's dying. They must have taken his blood. They must have maybe tried to do an operation on him or something like that. The minute you take his blood or open up, you're going to find out it's not T'Challa. It's a Skrull. So if you're going to do something like that, it has to make sense.
Skrulls can fake their blood. Skrulls can transform to the minute detail.
Okay, the minute detail, yes. I don't know about faking the blood, though. I don't know about that. So I can't really comment on that. You're more of a comic book guy now than I am, so I don't know if they can
We got to use the MCU logic. Can I turn into a filing cabinet?
Can you turn into a cat?
What's a cat?
What about a filing cabinet?
Why would I turn into a filing cabinet?
Oh, did he say yes to that? Never mind. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. MCU logic, though. Let's just go with it. You can change your hair. You can change everything. Why can't you change your blood? Everything changes.
But if that's the case, then how do you ever know it's a Skrull?
T'Challa will reveal himself when Aldous Hodge, now cast as T'Challa, says, "I never yielded. I'm not dead. Hey guys, it's me, Aldous." That's just one. Skrull is just one of the ways. There's other ways. Like he could have injected himself with the thing that Nick Fury faked his death with when he stopped his heartbeat. He could have gotten the Wakandan version of that. And
yeah, but Sherry was working so hard to get the cure. She would have known. She's not stupid.
Okay, magic. Doctor Strange figured it out. Boom.
It still don't make sense though. Like it has to make sense. And
yes, he can say, Steven, I need to fake my death. Do you have the abracadabra for that? Yeah, sure. This will get Shuri.
And I'm not saying they can't make it make sense, but the ones you bringing up just don't meh. It doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, they really should have never killed the character. They could have acted like this was the death during the blip, and everyone was sad about losing him. This could have all happened in the blip year, but nope.
You see, that I can agree with. But at the end of the day...
You agreed with me. You were with recasting T'Challa from the beginning.
At the beginning, I was 100% until I seen the movie. And I was like, you know what? It probably would have been weird seeing someone else play T'Challa, right? It just would have felt weird. It would have felt like it was a little bit too soon. Now, if you say you wanted to wait maybe 2 or 3 more years and do something like that, fine. But you got to understand too, Marvel Studios, like, no, we're going to have a date for this. We're going to put this out this time, this out this time. And you got to stick with that, right?
Yeah.
They want the money, right? So do what you have to do to get this movie out. You know what I mean? Granted, yes, and we'll get to that where you said it didn't make as much money as the first one. I agree with that. But a lot of sequels don't make as much money as the first one. And just because they recast T'Challa in it doesn't necessarily mean it would have made just as much or more.
We'll never know what the story was bad. We'll never know the answer to what it would have made. It's not like we've had a recast of a lead character and they got their own movie. Even the Hulk, his recast never had his own Hulk movie, right? And when they do their own Hulk movie with actual Mark Ruffalo, it'll be so many years removed from the first Hulk, I won't even compare it. So yeah, it's not something we can be able to compare. But I'll just talk about it now though. The Iron Man sequel made more, Guardians sequel made more, Ant-Man, Thor made more. All of the movies who had a sequel in the Marvel made more. Now, if this movie made, just like 90% of what the first movie made, fine. It's a stretch, but it made 65%. This movie's sitting at $840 million, and that's about $500 million that it's missing from the first one. That's a lot. That's a big $500 million. That's like more than Shazam. That's more than like whole movies. It's huge.
Yeah, but this movie also didn't play in China. The first one did.
It does now. It did now, and the first weekend made like $12 million in China.
It did now, but at the same time, the movie is already out. People can find other ways to watch it.
Okay, Anzo, I'll give you China. The $105 million that gave the first Black Panther, I'll give you that. It's okay. So it's down $400 million. That's still poor.
Well, no, it still made over $800 million. So that's not poor. It made a profit. Now, it may not have
comparing to what the first
comparing to what the first one did. Yes, I agree with that. But what if the second one did recast T'Challa, but the story was garbage and people didn't want to see it for that? That could be a possibility as well too. So to sit there and think that just because they recasted it would have made more, that's not necessarily the case. That's not true.
Yeah, I don't have the data for that.
No, we don't. We don't have the data for that. But I'm just saying at the end of the day, that doesn't necessarily mean it's true, right? Maybe it would have made more than this one did, right? Maybe it would have made $1 billion, but it doesn't necessarily mean it would have made as much as the first one.
So I brought this article up. 98 times a white actor played someone who wasn't white.
It was wrong then. It's wrong today. And like some of those things you read, I had no clue, because I mean, it's not possible to see it and know every movie. But like, yeah,
Right.
bro.
I like how when LB says how it's not possible to see and to know all of these things, and then Anzo goes right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so yeah, I did say right, and you're right. It's not possible to know all of these, but there's ones that, as a comic book fan, you should know, right?
Yeah.
So you love Captain Marvel, right?
It's cool.
Was Marvel like she was in the comic?
Nope. Dr. Wendy Lawson was not the same as Marvel.
So how come you don't complain about that?
It's not a lead character, and it's not a skin tone thing either. It's not black representation.
It was a race band. Okay, so and I'll say the ancient one is not black representation too, but that's another race band. So but when you responded, you said you hated completely 98 times. You hate it. So if you do, you should still be talking about those as well. I know black because we are black and it's more to us. But if you say you hate it all, you ignore those ones and just go straight to the Black Panther one.
I literally just said it. Like, I don't want to be redundant, but like, bro, the amount of power that this character in this depiction had outweighs Ancient One, who is a supporting character of the Doctor Strange movie.
Okay, you might be right, but they still did it. And then you said icon, right? Icon for who? Comic book fans, right? There are people, and when you go talk about the first one, and I think this is more of an argument as well, right? Before Black Panther came out, you would go and Google Black Panther. What would show up? The Black Panther Party.
Oh, yeah, that too, yeah.
Right. So now you have this Black Panther Marvel movie, and then now you go Google it, and it's T'Challa. It's T'Challa, Black Panther, right? So I think that's an argument to be had there, right there. Yeah. But when it comes to icon, normies didn't know who Black Panther was, right? We did. They didn't know. So he may have been an icon to a select few, but to a majority, no. And I don't think that a fake comic book character should be the type of people you should be looking up to, right? When we talk about black representation, and I brought the movie up, which was The Best Man, I think you get really good black representation there. Let's go to black representation where we talk about the black man and the family aspect and being a good father and being a good husband, right? You go to Black Panther 2, and the original script for that movie was him coming back from the blimp and him
being a father, yeah.
Right. But, okay, he's a father, which means that child was born before he was blimped. Did he ever marry Nakia?
I think the man Chadwick Boseman he would never have let it slide that this child was born out of wedlock. They would have definitely tied things up. Though. Who, Chadwick Boseman? I think highly of him. I think he would get that right.
I agree. Maybe he would, but we don't know that. So that's speculation, right? Maybe he wouldn't say anything. But at the end of the day, that was the part of the story. So what kind of positive...
Wait. What was part of the story? You be talking about the bastard son was part of the story?
Yes.
You're speculating that, though. That
was the original script. The original
script was him being a father, but the wedding part, we don't know whether or not they were married. I don't think that has ever been revealed from Coogler or anyone in the interviews. They just kind of said there was a plan to use this child.
Okay, so no, they actually had the script. They had the script. They gave Chadwick Boseman the script, and the script was him coming back from the blip and not knowing he had a son, right? Mm-hmm. And oh no, he knew he had a son, but missing the 5 years of him being a part of
Scott
that
Lang.
son's life. Right,
exactly. Ant-Man.
Exactly. But there was no talk about him being married to Nakia.
Just because we didn't hear them talk about it. They didn't get to that point.
But if that were the case, then he would have been married to her in this one, because they only changed a few things from this movie. Like, you know what I mean? The kid was still involved, right? He wasn't married to her in Black Panther 2. So I'm going to assume that if they had did that movie, he wouldn't have been married to her. So what kind of black representation is that, to know that he has a child with this woman and didn't marry her?
You're speculating that, just like you speculated, if the recast was done, this movie would have made less money. You don't know these things, and they're risks I'm willing to take for the sake of the representation. I'd be
Okay.
cheering for the
But you're speculating that it's the other way around too.
No, I am admitting to you that I do not have any
Okay,
proof
right.
of this. But what I went off of was just that Chadwick Boseman would know better, and he's influential enough to make sure that that gets taken care of. And I don't see the studios listening to him and saying, "You want them to be married? No, no, no. He's got to be a deadbeat dad who just knocks her up." I don't think they would say that to him.
Okay, so maybe you're right, right? But the fact that they weren't married in this kind of makes me believe that, well, if he wasn't married, because he died, right? So they could have said still that, yeah, they had gotten married and they were married, but they didn't, right? So if
Yeah.
they didn't do that in this one, then I'm gonna assume
Because they're
that they weren't gonna
clueless.
do.
Chadwick
But
Boseman carried this franchise. Without him, we wouldn't have had them speaking with the accents that they speak. They'd be speaking like British style accents. That
how
we
do you
know
know
this.
that?
Oh man, somebody said this. Somebody said this.
Well, I don't know who said that, but I don't believe that at all.
Bro, I need to
Ryan,
cite my source. You're right, but I remember. Yeah, sorry, I can't cite my source, but I'm very confident that happened. That this guy had so much input and changed everything to make it better, and this just the culturally clueless American Ryan Coogler and everyone else who's part of that, Kevin Feige, they were all just like, "Oh yeah, I guess we should."
you see, again, I don't buy that. I don't, because they had African wear, they had African people, they had African this, and they had African that. So for me to think that they're going so accurate with Africa and then to have them have British accents, that don't make sense to me.
Here,
I don't
Anzo, I'll
believe
put
it.
it on the screen now because I'm editing this. I'll put it on the screen. The idea of the character having an African accent, Kosa specifically, was briefly a point of contention between him and Marvel. They felt that it was maybe too much for an audience to take. Boseman acknowledges, I felt the exact opposite. Like, if I speak with a British accent, what's going to happen when I go home? He continues. It felt to me like a deal breaker, adding, I was like, no, this is such an important factor that if we lose this right now, what else are we going to throw away for the sake of making people feel comfortable? So there it
Okay,
is.
so it doesn't say that they were going to have him use a British accent. He's saying if I spoke with a British accent. That doesn't mean they said. They maybe had just made him speaking in his regular American accent, which again wouldn't have worked, but that doesn't necessarily say that they were going to use British accents.
That's enough for me. I'm convinced.
Yeah, I'm not convinced. I'll convince that maybe they were going to have him just speak as an American accent. I'll agree with that. But to say that they were going to give them British accents, no, I don't agree with that. He doesn't say that they wanted us to use British accents. He said, if I spoke with a British accent, right? So I think he was just using that as an example.
The most highest grossing film with a black lead ever. That shouldn't be pulled.
So I do agree with you that this movie was the highest grossing black movie of all time, 100%. There's no doubt about that. But the reason is because it has that Marvel logo on it. If it did not have that Marvel logo on it, it would not have made the money that it made, right?
True.
You can go to the history and look at all the movies we have as black movies. And I think that's a big issue that we have, is we have a hard time supporting our movies. You know, that people also find other ways to watch them, of course, which takes away from the movie as well. But I think there's a lot of so I think black people will support a black movie, right? Depending on the genre, if you're into that movie and stuff like that. And I don't say that because it's a black movie, we got to support it. But if you like superhero movies and a black superhero movie comes out, then why not support it, right? If you like comedies or dramas or whatever, then support what you like. You know what I mean? Especially if it's us, because I said this many times. And if we don't support it, Hollywood will think that we don't care about these movies and they'll stop making them, right? The only reason why they'll make them is if they feel that they're going to make money off of them. So that's the thing. I'm like, yeah, Black Panther made that type of money and I'm happy for it, 100%. But I think you take off that Marvel label and it doesn't make as much.
Okay, it's not most about the money. It's a lot to do with the tickets that were sold. I shouldn't use the word sold because it's not money. I'm trying to say that people saw it. verifiably, we don't really know how many people watched. I don't know, pick a movie that's been on TV for years. Rush Hour, right? Over the years, how many generations have saw it on TBS Superstation or here and there. Just, people saw it Rush Hour. We don't know how much. I can look at from the ticket sales. Oh, human beings watched this movie. A lot of them did, more so than The Best Man Final Chapters or Coach Carter or some of the other black movies that are inspirational, role models. Lean on Me with Morgan Freeman. And I've got a problem with Lean on Me and Coach Carter also, because they did depict black people in poor, struggling, and this was like epic. Black Panther was more than that. So just by exposure and by reach, that's what I mean by so many people seen it. Not just black people, white people benefit from this representation as well, where they can humanize somebody with dark skin. And yes, you are very right to tell me that Marvel and the brand does come with ticket sales and come with people watching it. And that's okay. That's not a complaint on mine. That's just a fact, and it's a good thing that Marvel did this. And I hope that they use their power to do more of these, but not with temporary versions, with like full-time black characters. So when we do the X-Men, let's get Storm there, and don't use Storm like the sixth member of the cast. She could be right side by side with Cyclops, leadership positions.
And I don't disagree with that. Not 100%. I don't disagree with that. I agree with you 100%. When they do the X-Men, I want Storm right there as a prominent member. She was in the comic book, so there's no reason for them to do it to her in the movie. I agree with that.
You're good with race. You're so good with race swaps, though. Can you imagine if Giancarlo Esposito plays Professor X and Professor X has the most lines? Would you take that, or would you take Storm being, let's say, second to Cyclops in a X-Men movie? Which would you rather have? It's the first. It's Giancarlo Esposito, and he's the number one character, and he's playing Professor X, or Storm as the second most important character, but at least she's an original and she's not a race swap.
It wouldn't matter to me.
Damn,
because
I had you.
It wouldn't matter to me, because at least we got this, and I think he would kill it as Professor X, so I don't have a problem with that. I would think he could bring, you see, again, now I understand what you're saying, that, when people see him as Professor X and then go back to the comics, they're going to see a white Professor X. I agree with that. But I also think that it could still bring more people. And again, I've said it many times, a lot of people don't read comics like they used to.
See, you're doing this. It's not even about going back to the comics. I should have stopped you right when you said that. They're also going back to the 2000 movies and going back to Doctor Strange, where there was a white Professor X, and then going forward to the next time they do X-Men, they don't have to do a black Professor X. They just do that this one time. It's temporary, but Storm is going to consistently be playing an African character from Kenya.
So if they do an extensive search and find out that he is the best person for that character right now, what is the problem with that?
Because it takes a spot that they give. They give very few spots to the black characters, and I don't want it to go to a character who's gonna be a one and done. Play Professor X for a little bit, and that's that. What I want is the longevity that Superman got. It's always there, always there, always there. And if a white guy plays Professor X, okay, that's great. It's over. Then let's say the MCU reboots and now it's the second cinematic universe. Guess who's going to be Captain America? Steve Rogers is going to be a white guy from Brooklyn in the 1940s. Okay, that's cool. Then they reboot again. And let's do Thor. What would be cool if Thor was black? And the third cinematic universe has a black Thor. But, Steve Rogers will be white again. But we'll do a black Thor just so we can have our major black character in the MCU. I would say this is not at all forwarding black characters. Meanwhile, we got characters like Hunger Games, Katniss Everdeen gaining popularity. There's no problems with introducing new characters like Frozen and Elsa and Anna and these girls, and everyone's getting new characters, and Barbie's getting reboot, and everyone white is just getting new white characters. And when we look around, we go, what's happened in the last 100 years? Well, the top black characters were really just black actors playing white characters.
So first I'll say this. I mean, with the way this world is going now, it's never going to be anyone, like there's never going to be just one white character, one black character, or anything like that. They're going to race swap from now until we die. they're going to do it, right? Whether you like it or not, they're going to do it. So I don't have a problem with them doing it at all. 100%. I'm like, listen, at least there is a black man out there who has a job that probably wouldn't have a job, right? You can also still have Storm in that movie. She can still be prominent. She could still be the Storm, and you could have maybe Esposito as Professor X being in the background, right? Because if you watch the X-Men movies, they're all about Wolverine. So Professor X is in the background, right? We talked about Multiverse of Madness. He was in there for like what, 10, 20 minutes if you add it all together, right? So at the end of the day, you can still have him being a Professor X in the background and still propel Storm into the level that you want her to be. So just because they do it doesn't necessarily mean that they can't still propel original characters.
Except it does, though, because I know that black actors are scarce. They do it as like a requirement. If not, then if they really wanted to reverse their history, Disney played a part in, of just this white standard default, it's white, 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 then their next slate of movies across the board, not just Marvel, but in all, we just have more black people in it, and Asians and everyone else who's not white. But they're not trying to do that. I recognize, and you have to recognize this too, that the majority of lead actors that they use is white. That's still the case today. To this day, that's the dominant. And unfortunately for that, when someone like a black actor gets used, it takes away from the opportunity that an actual black character like Blue Marvel from Marvel, or I don't know, like I said, Storm, right, will get prominent features. Now you're saying that at least a black actor will be cast, and that's a positive thing. Of course, that family and everyone who's in that will be benefiting. However, that would also be the case if they played a black character. Wonder Man is being played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. Okay, what if he played somebody who was not a race swap? He'd still get the job. They'd still be casting somebody black. Everything that you want would still happen, except you'd also get what I want, which is the familiarity and introduction of a new black character. What I'm saying doesn't X years out. Like, you can still get your actor who's going to get paid, and the level of his name brand will be elevated by Marvel. That'll happen also.
Right. But if they never have any plans of making a movie about that character, like, which character did you just use?
It was Wonder Man, which is in books.
No, before Wonder Man, you said.
Man, I said Professor X?
Black Beetle or something like that?
Oh, yeah. His name is Blue Marvel Adam Brashear. It was never in the plans. Okay. Make it in the plans. Don't be excluding. Include Blue Marvel. That's my answer to that.
Right, but what if it doesn't fit into the plan, right? Because you got to understand, they have this plan, they have this universe that they want to create, right? What if that character doesn't fit into that universe, right? Hey, maybe they are trying to hit a quota, but I believe sometimes, and it's rare, but I do believe sometimes they actually cast the best character for the role, right? You had the Black Adam movie, and you had Idris Hodge.
Yeah, Aldous Hodge.
Aldous Hodge playing a Hawkman, who's originally white. Yeah. But he killed it, though. He killed it. I think that he probably was the best person for that role, and he killed it, right? So I don't have a problem with that. I'm like, let this man get his shine, because if he wasn't cast as that, who knows where his career would be? Maybe he wouldn't be getting the Marvel one, the one he's getting now. You just said it.
Oh, Wonder Man,
yeah, Wonder Man. So maybe he wouldn't be getting Wonder Man if that wasn't it. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, listen. At the end of the day, you have a brother out there who's getting paid, who's getting work, right? Work where he might not have actually gotten work. So
I think if this was phase one, in phase one I could say, yo, listen, they can't just force movies in here. But now we just had Moon Knight pop up, and Ms. Marvel and She-Hulk popped up, and they're introducing so many characters now. At this point in the MCU, the universe has been around for 14 years. Anyone can happen. I don't think that, well, they just wouldn't fit the story. I think you could fit the story. I don't even, people say Captain Marvel, as a fan, I don't want to say it, but Captain Marvel didn't really fit into Avengers Endgame. They just did it. Yeah, it made $1 billion and everyone knows the name of Captain Marvel. So it was a success. And that's female representation. I know it's different than we're talking about race right now, right? And I never want to conflate the two. They are two separate issues. Just there's separate arguments for each. However, that was done and it was, quote, inorganic or unnatural, and I'm fine with it happening. And then we're even further removed from that. That was only year 11. This is year 15 right now.
So I agree with you 100% that Marvel, if any company can take that risk. I do believe that 100%. They've made enough money. They have 4 phases already. Yes, they do. DC, on the other hand, I think they have to be very careful with what they do and what they put out there.
You're saying Superman and Batman better be both in authority, and Supergirl and Swamp Thing.
You see, now, let me get to that. I was going to say, you look at the James Gunn slate, and you're like, I never heard of this. I never heard of that. I never heard of this, right? At least me anyways. Comic book fans probably do know who they are. But as a normie looking at this, they're like, who's the authority? Who are these creature commando guys, right? I'm pretty sure they don't know that. But I think it fits into James Gunn's story. That's why he's doing it. I'm hoping that. And until I see it, when I see it, then I'm like, well, yeah, you could have put something else here. But we are getting a Green Lantern, and you're getting John Stewart, right? Black character. He was black in the comics. Yep. He's going to be black in the movies. But I know you're going to say, well, and I'm not going to speak for you. But I know what you're going to say, right? And I get it. You still think he's a secondary character to Hal Jordan. I completely understand that. But he's still not a race band, right? He's still going to be black in future and past representations.
I told you I'm not going to say it. I told you.
But that's still a little bit of what you're asking for.
You're right. It's a little bit of what I'm asking for. Why we can't just get complete? Why can't I just... No, I'm not saying it. I'm not doing it. Let's continue. Okay, hold on. Kevin Feige. It was just a tweet, right? Like, you're okay with me just saying it was just a tweet and you accept that?
So it was, what you're basically saying is you were joking.
Yes, I truly do not believe he's part of the Ku Klux Klan. It was just like his actions have been very bad, but no, I don't think he really is that.
Okay, I got you. Because you were talking about his age, right? And I don't know how old Kevin Feige is.
I got a computer in front of me.
So find out how old he is, because I'm 48, so he can't be that much off from me.
49.
There you go.
So the world you guys grew up in was white characters in media. You got your Indiana Jones, and you got all your white, and that's probably why he's not thinking. Yeah.
No, we had black too. We had a lot more black movies back then than we do now, right? I looked it up, and I think it was 90 something. Like that whole year, we had like 16 black movies.
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'm talking that came in theaters, right?
Yeah.
That came in theaters, not that just went straight to video or whatever, but actually came in theaters. 16 in that year, right? You fast forward to like, I think it was 2020 or something like that, or like anywhere in the 2000s. After those movies start making money, you get like 6.
Now, were these big movies that were black, were they big? Were they positive? Were they gay?
Yeah, you got, okay, so you got a variety, right? You had Soul Food, you had The Best Man, you had The Woods, you had Love Jones, so they were diverse. Some of them were gangster, Boys in the Hood, some of them were love stories, where you got positive, and you also had some where it was the gangster stuff. But you had a mix of it. But just
so we've regressed. In my opinion, we've regressed based off what we've been getting now. A lot of is slave stuff, things in the past, and I don't want to see that so much.
Okay, so I agree with you 100%. I think they focus way too much on, and this is a problem that I've always had with black movies, is they're not as positive as they should be. I 100% agree with that. That's why when we do get the positive ones, I flock to it. You know what I mean? And I can't stress it enough that if you watch The Best Man, the final chapters, even if you watch the first two, you get real good positive representation of us. Family men, you know what I mean? They're wealthy. You know, you watch the progression from Terrence Howard's character go from this cocky, don't give a type of dude to end up being, you know, a loving husband and father and everything like that. So
this sounds great and awesome. It's also not T'Challa, which you're not arguing against, right? You're not
right.
saying that. Okay.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that you have those type of positive representations as well. But I think we need more of that. We don't need the slave movies. We don't need the gangster movies. We need more of that. That was my point. Like we need more of that. So I agree with you 100%. And I think we have regressed because we had more of it when I was growing up. But
that's crazy because my whole point about Kevin Feige is actually something that you're refuting, that it was better off when Kevin Feige was coming up. He did see more of that nice, what was the show with Jim Carrey?
In Living Color?
In Living Color and Cosby Show and those things. What's the Black family sitcom these days, huh? Blackish is over now.
Right. And I think Blackish was one of the most positive ones. But I said this like months ago, like, where are the positive sitcom shows, right? You have a couple on Netflix where like Omar Epps has one and it's kind of like, he's kind of like a silly goofball or whatever in the show. You get some sort of good representation. He's a family man and stuff like that, right? Cares for his family and stuff like that, but he's also that goofball kind of a way. Then you have The Bel Air, which is a good show. I like it, but there's positive in there, but you also have the negative, like doing shady businesses and shady practices and mysteries and stuff like that, to where they kind of don't look like they're all positive. But I also think that's also a representation of the society that we live in, because nothing is positive anymore.
Hey, so stop trying to copy the society and put positive portrayals. You might actually influence people. Go plug HBCUs and people be wearing their jackets with the big logos on it, and all of a sudden those 12 and 13-year-olds will think, whoa, they're so cool, I want to dress that way. What do I got to do? All right, let me study these books. And it may influence, not just may, it will. How many? Not everybody, but there'll be something positive there to counter the very evil that is trying to bring people down.
I don't disagree with you. Go back and you look at how many movies we had with Black adults in college, right? Drumline, You Got Served, those type of movies. These guys are in college, right? But now you don't see that. So I agree with that. I'm not gonna disagree with anything you said there.
It's not representation, it's attendance. Somebody is there, present. You get somebody on screen. That representation is meaningful, it's lasting, and it's not, we took care of that, good, we got to have someone's there. That's attendance.
But no, it's representation, because you had Sherry, who was represented as a Black smart woman in both movies. She's going to be a Black smart woman in the next movie. So that's not attendance, that's representation. It may not be the representation that you want, but it's representation. You had the Queen, who was a strong Black woman in the first one, who was even stronger in the second one. So that's representation. That's not attendance.
I'm dissatisfied because the franchise belongs to Shuri's brother, and because it came at his expense, well, at least we're still getting the positive representation. As positive as Ramonda and Shuri and everyone else in Wakanda is, it came at the cost of T'Challa. And so you're more happy with the attendance that, no, it was still done. No, we still got Black representation. That's fine. And I'm looking at it like, well, Shuri's not going to be the lead. Just like the T'Child. When they reboot in the MCU and they start over again, they're going to cast a little 8-year-old Shuri, and they're going to cast like a 23-year-old T'Challa, and they'll go from there. We're not even going to get to see Shuri get her powers and whatnot until a decade into the second cinematic universe. I don't see Shuri as long-term, and that's part of what I mean when I say representation. Yeah, there's the positivity of it all and being in the lead of it all, but then don't rob T'Challa of it. When you do that, then you're just satisfied with the attendance factor that there was someone positive, check, positive in the lead, and Therefore, it makes representation. It also came at the cost of T'Challa. That's not to be ignored.
Well, in the next movie, you're gonna get T'Challa, so that's not to be ignored either.
I'm ignoring
it. All right, what we got next?
It doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what you say. He's still T'Challa.
Exactly.
Now that I think of it, it's funny how MJ, Michelle Jones Watson, is different than MJ, even though they share the same name. But the child, whose name is Toussaint, but in Wakanda, his name is T'Challa. That's the same thing. That can pass?
So you said they share the same name. Mary Jane in the movie, MJ in the movie is not it's not the same name. It's Mary Jane in the comic. Her name in the movie is not Mary Jane.
Yeah, her name is Michelle, but they do say MJ all the time.
Yes, but MJ is not the name, though. They have the same initials, but you said same name. Her name is not MJ. It's not Mary Jane. It's not even Michelle Jane. It's Michelle something else, right? So it's not the same name. It's only the same initials.
I wonder how many people in the comment section are going to be like, no, Anzo's onto something. I'm with them. Yeah, MJ, it's different. To me, I think it's like, I'm not even going to bother. Okay, fine. If that's the way you feel, I'm not going to change your mind. I'm not going to say anything. Let's just continue with the video since we're like an hour in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we're not really an hour in because they're going to edit this so much. But guys, if you're listening, we've been an hour in.
Yeah.
They didn't need to end him with a death. This guy had a sickness that he didn't tell anyone. I'm talking of Chadwick Boseman. And they put that in a movie. They told everyone. It's not his intention. If it was, then instead, he would have said something like, yo, look, I'm dying. Get rid of my character.
Okay.
Up until 2 weeks to the day he died.
So, right. Nobody knew that he was going to die or that he was sick before he died.
Except for his close family.
Right. But after he died, everybody knew. So there was no problem putting out that movie because they didn't blast anything. They didn't tell anything that someone didn't know. Right. Now, if the movie had come out before he died and they did something like that, then yes, I would agree with you. But they did it after he died. We all knew he died. So they didn't really like throw away a secret because it wasn't a secret anymore.
How about the second part about his intention was to have T'Challa in the sequel because he was giving input to Ryan Coogler? How about that?
Yeah, but he also died. So when he died, they decided that the best way to honor him
was ignore him,
not to have him in the movie.
Even though when he was alive, he said to have T'Challa in the movie.
Well, do we have any proof that he actually said that?
Yeah. The same interview. Wait, hold on. Do we have proof?
Right, because I know we have the brother. I know we have the proof where the brother says that he would have wanted him, but we never have any actual quotes from him saying, yes, I want T'Challa in the movie.
Dog, I don't even know how to counter that.
Well, if you find anything, maybe you can add it in at some point, right?
No, that's not what I mean. I just mean, did you thought that Chadwick Boseman was okay with him not being in the second? During the interview where he actually, or Ryan Coogler speaks to, it's Ta-Nehisi Coates, and it's in the official Wakanda Forever podcast interview.
So you're writing the sequel.
Yeah.
You obviously a picture in him. You're thinking about him as you write it. Where were you in
his movie, man? Like, you know.
Right. Where were you in the script when you found out he passed?
I just finished it, man. My last conversation with him was calling him, asking him if he wanted to read it before I got notes from the studio. That was the last time we spoke. And yeah, so he passed maybe a couple weeks after I finished.
He says 2 weeks before he actually died, he gave him the script. Here, read the script. Now, and we didn't know it at the time, but we know now that he was just too tired to read the script. But it was completed. And he had a lot to do with the movie. And if he did have a lot to do with the movie, that's proof enough for me, and it should be for everyone listening except for you. It's proof that T'Challa was going to be in the second movie.
Yes, and then he died.
Yes,
and then the person who was playing T'Challa died.
Yeah, and while the person who was playing T'Challa, while that guy was alive, his intention was T'Challa to be in the movie. Now, just because he died, it doesn't mean his intention stopped being for T'Challa to be in the movie.
Well, it technically says he didn't read the script because he was too tired, right?
So he was like, it's better for him to read it later. But I found out later that he was too tired to read anything.
So maybe he was too tired to even tell them this is what they should do or what I want you to do, right? It's not like they had this big conversation with him to say, hey, Chadwick, we know you're going to pass away. I'm sorry to hear that, but what do you want us to do? It's not like they had that conversation with him. Now, I'm not saying he didn't want to have T'Challa in the movie. I'm pretty sure maybe he would have wanted to have
maybe,
T'Challa
possibly. It could be.
But at the same time, right, you got to understand that, well, these people that are making these movies care about me. He can't be naive to think that, they're just going to want to move on and completely act like he wasn't even there. So it's a conversation that I do think they should have had. I just don't think they did have.
Now, with Derek Boseman, who is 10 years older than him, played a part in raising him, when he says that Chadwick would have wanted a recast. Now, Chadwick and Derek knew each other so closely that actually Derek was one of the people who knew about the illness. His castmates did not. So that's how strongly I value Derek Boseman over Kevin Feige and Ryan Coogler, okay? That's how much I value Derek. Derek says he would have wanted a recast.
Right, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they've had that conversation. You don't have.
They never did. He says they never had the conversation. Okay, so he said what he would have. So he's speaking on his behalf, the same way someone in your family could speak on what your behalf would be. Like you've spoken about, you wanted to be cremated, right? Mm-hmm. Someone who knows you would have that information, and then should you ever pass?
No, not necessarily, because when my father died, I didn't know what he wanted. I didn't know if he wanted to be cremated or buried. We assumed it was cremated. But when my mom passed, I had that conversation with her before she passed. And she told me she wanted to be cremated just like her husband, right? But before my dad passed, I had no idea what he would have wanted. And I was close with my dad. But
you made the assumption. You made the correct assumption based on how much you know about him. And that's something that I can respect.
But do I really know it was the right choice? Because I'll never be able to ask him.
Oh, someone who's talked so much about representation and the value of the character, I could couple that up with the knowledge that Derek Boseman has on his brother and easily come to the conclusion, yeah, that's a good assumption to make. We'll roll with that one. I'll roll with it. I'll go with a family opinion way before I go with a studio opinion on what they wanted to do. So I do hold Derek Boseman's in the highest of regards.
Right, and I can absolutely understand that, but as you said, it's an assumption, right? So you don't know, we don't know, right? We really don't, and we don't know what kind of conversations they had, and I don't see them sitting at Chadwick Boseman's deathbed talking about Black Panther.
I doubt that, yeah.
Right, you know what I mean? So to sit there and assume that, hey, I don't know. He could be right. Maybe he knows his brother well enough to assume that. You could be absolutely 100%. But to say that it's a definite, I won't, because I don't think it is.
Could you definitely say Derek knew him more than Kevin Feige?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I'll say that, but I'll say yes, because family, whatever. But at the same time, and you said they were close, right? So I'm taking your word for that. But at the same time, yeah, I would still say that. But at the same time, if they were estranged or if they weren't really that close, then maybe not, But because you said they're close, and I'm taking that as to your question, then I'll say yes, 100%. He knew better than Kevin Feige. Ryan Coogler might be a little bit different, but Kevin Feige, absolutely.
I'll go Coogler, Feige, Nate Moore, Angela Bassett, everyone.
I can agree with that too. I can.
And Jeopardy didn't stop when Alex Trebek died. You continue what they did. That's what they would want. You don't say, yo, you did such a great thing, rather than making you what Adam West was to Batman. I'm going to keep mentioning Batman and Superman because that's the top tier that I will compare him to. You will not be the progenitor, Chadwick Boseman, of this character. You will be the one and done. We're honoring him. You got to get over the emotional response that you had to his death, which happened in August of 2020, and then 11 months later when it was filming. It wasn't enough for you to...
Here's what I'll say about that, because you're saying you honor him by continuing what he did. Christopher Nolan didn't do that. When Heath Ledger died, he was supposed to be in the third Batman movie, and they didn't recast him. they didn't put him in, they completely changed the movie. So they didn't do that for him.
Yeah. Christopher Nolan did the Joker. Was it played by a black character who there's such few of? Was he the lead? Neither of these things are the case.
They are not the case. But what I'm saying is, when it comes to a death, you can't just have this black and white to where it's like, do this and do that. I've said it many times. People act different, right? People are different. Now, people handle death differently. And I think that's the reason why, maybe they don't think recasting him and having him in the next movie is the way to honor him, right? There's different ways to honor somebody. You don't just have to have one complete way to say we're going to honor him by recasting him. You can also honor him by not having him in the movie as well.
And you can dishonor him by killing the character. We can do what you just said right now, because you just said not having him in the movie out of honor. Fine. Let's not have T'Challa. Hey, where's T'Challa? He's in space. All right, boom. And we watch the whole movie of Shuri, becoming worthy, fighting Namor, all that good stuff. I'm fine with that. That didn't happen, though. They decided to kill him, so which means that he's not going to be in phase 5, 6, 7.
Well, he will. It'll just be someone else playing him.
Yeah, Toussaint.
It's still him. His name's T'Challa. Still going to be him. He can still have all the values. He can still propel the T'Challa name and Black Panther to the heights you want it to be.
And it's not disrespectful?
No. No, it's not.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion.
Just like, you know what? Well, our grieving is over. It wasn't enough. Fine. Delay the movie. Delay the movie 2 years. Delay the movie. Are you okay with that if they delayed the movie with 2 years?
I would have been okay with that as well.
Yeah. People who are incapable of doing a Black Panther movie without T'Challa because of the emotions of a death that happened with the main actor. Okay. Take a little break. Get it together.
So now, as I said earlier, to elaborate, I do agree with you. And I do say, yeah, they could have waited an extra 2 years or something like that. And I believe that Ryan Coogler and the rest of them wouldn't have had a problem with that. But I think Kevin Feige might have had a problem with that.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the main decision maker, Kevin Feige.
Right, exactly. So I think that's where the blame should lie on not waiting.
Capitalism. Feige. We blame the corporate pressure of having to make money in the fourth quarter of 2022. Yes. That's all that was. And if they hadn't have done that, and they had the option to take a break, and they took them on that option. It wasn't like a test. You can take a break. Sometimes your boss will say that to you. Oh, you guys, and then you're really like, no, F that. I'm not coming late, even though they told me you can come late tomorrow. No, I'm being on time. Like, yeah, I know you really want to outperform and everything. Plus, they thought Black Panther would be profitable because the first one was. It wasn't as profitable. It was arguably not profitable at all, which is a debate I don't want to have right now. But it's I just don't like the heartless. Okay, what do you guys want? You just want to have the movie, huh? You sickos. And I'm saying no. That's never been the case with me. I did not want to instantly just recast him. I wanted the right thing to do and decisions to be made on a clear head. If they were still grieving, like it was LB who said it, if they are still grieving, then they're not fit to be doing the job right now, and especially not fit to be acting and reenacting the guy's death, and then everyone giving their little monologue of how he meant so much to them, he meaning T'Challa, but also the actors, both talking about Chadwick. They put their hearts into those performances, like you're going to say. People of doing it still, then you're just not qualified to do the Black Panther franchise. If like I just said, if you're not qualified to do the Black Panther franchise if you can't do a Black Panther movie without T'Challa. And do you think that was harsh of me to say?
Again, I do, because I don't think, you see, I do agree with you when you say the corporate and we got to get this quarter out. We have our plan. We know what we're going to do. Right. But again, Marvel, and they've changed their schedule. So that really don't make sense, because they have changed their schedule, which they could have done. They could have brought it out in another 2 or 3 more years. It didn't have to come out when it did right then and there. But like you said,
maybe for Thunderbolts because of Val.
Yeah. But even still, right? They could have maybe changed those scenes around. Like those scenes were not really, well, we don't know about what's going on in the future, but right now those scenes seem like they could have been in a totally different movie. right? They didn't have to be that way in that movie. Could have been another movie. It's like, hey, you know what? You know, I don't know, maybe done something else. I don't know. They could have found another way to do that. So I can agree with you 100% there. Maybe they could have waited. But at the same time, I'm like, to say that they weren't fit to do it, I think they were. And I think that whole funeral scene was to way to like pretty much put their feelings and how they loved Chadwick on film, right? So I think it was done in good taste. I don't think it was poor taste.
Okay. The T'Child, which you accept as a T'Challa recast, looks totally different than Chadwick Boseman. The new actor who will play that won't be Chadwick Boseman's face. That tribute that was recycled, that wasn't the first time we've seen that tribute. And if you have a weird feeling that someone else is going to be there, that is just the reality of death and something that we've gotten over before. We've had recasts all the time, and it may feel weird, but once you see the trailer, maybe 5 months later, it's time to see the movie, it will have sunk in. Maybe you're in the movie and it's going to take a little time to settle in, but all the characters are going to call that guy T'Challa, and we're going to go, okay, yeah, I guess that's who's playing Shuri's brother. That weird feeling isn't a strong enough reason to nix this representative, this great character who, he was in the highest grossing black film ever. This character isn't someone who's disposable at all, especially when you consider representation. I don't want to hear talk about representation and its value coming out of yourself or anyone else anywhere. If you're talking about it's okay for the best character with the highest reach in Marvel, the biggest franchise in movies, if that was expendable, then you don't care about representation. You care about attendance. You just care about, well, there's enough black people in this movie. The weird feeling, what I want to ask you is, how long would it have took for you to get over the fact that there's a new actor playing T'Challa? Because you were for the recast. You think after the trailer 5 months later, yeah, I'm already accepting of it? Would the weird feeling that sting still exists for you even when you're watching the movie?
Okay, so I don't know. I probably would have, because I don't dwell on things too long, I would have probably been like, okay, well, whatever. They recasted him, right? But every time I watched the movie, I'd be like, oh, he's not as good as Chadwick. Oh, he's better than Chadwick. Oh, he's this or that. Chadwick wouldn't have done that. I think there would have always been some sort of comparison to the way Chadwick Boseman played him. And I think that's what they were really trying to avoid. Whether you think it's a positive or a negative or whatever, I just think they didn't want anybody comparing the new recast to Chadwick.
Yeah, and I'm the one saying
would have done that.
I'm saying I'll take that in a heartbeat. If it means I get T'Challa on screen, yes. I mean, that doesn't stop. Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland. Do you watch Spider-Man movies and think of how there was
all the time? I all the time. Every time I watch The Amazing Spider-Man, I say Andrew Garfield is garbage and Tobey Maguire is a better Spider-Man. I do it all the time. So even now, I'll do it. Like even now, a couple months ago, I watched The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I'm just like, he's garbage, man. Tobey Maguire would have been so much better in this role.
You see what I'm trying to tell you? You do see, like, it's going to happen. Like, it's an inevitability, and it's a reality of somebody new playing the character. Just the fact is that the character's there, and we're happy to see another Spider-Man movie, and we even revisit the old ones that we knew we didn't like.
Well, I personally would have said I could do without those Amazing Spider-Man movies. Honestly, I don't like them. So if they never made them, it wouldn't bother me at all, right?
No, I disagree. No,
it wouldn't bother me. 100%.
So why did you go back?
I want because I went back to all of them, right? I was speaking with World Comics. Was it World Comics or one of those guys? And they were talking about how they went back and watched the first two Spider-Mans and they were garbage. So I went back and I watched all of them. I watched Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, which watching Spider-Man 3, I liked it a lot more the second time or this time than I did the first time. I'm like, yo, it's not as bad as people say it is.
I said the same thing, yeah.
But Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2, yeah, I'll never watch those again. You can erase those from existence for me.
I'm telling you that there will be more Batman and Spider-Man, and it's just okay that we're gonna have to. Oh, this Peter was different than that Peter, and Bruce was different than Bruce, and that's an inevitable thing that's gonna exist, and we can stomach it and get over it.
And I agree with you. It's going to happen again, right? It's going to happen again. I agree with you. T'Challa will be recast down the line, but none of these characters were playing a character and then the actor died and they stepped into the role, right? They had finished with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and then did the Amazing Spider-Mans, right? They finished with the Amazing Spider-Man and then did Tom Holland Spider-Man, right? So it's totally different. They weren't finished with T'Challa. They weren't finished with him, and the
Actually, they
actor
weren't
died.
finished with Andrew Garfield. There was like a Sony leak that ruined that one. And plus, Spider-Man 4 was also supposed to happen, and it wasn't finished. I don't remember the drama, but something made it so that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 4 didn't happen.
Okay, so Spider-Man 4 didn't happen because Spider-Man 3 was panned. Nobody liked it, right? So they dropped the ball on that. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the same thing. Both of them made money, but nobody liked the movie.
Okay, let's get back to what you're saying though. Because of the death of Chadwick Boseman, that's a different reason than any other thing. That's enough of a reason for you to say, when the actor dies, it means that it's a no-no. That's what you're saying.
I'm not saying it's a no-no, but I can understand what they did. Right?
Do you understand what they did with William Hurts when he died? They just said, let's get Harrison Ford, shiny new toy.
Yeah, but William Hurts was in the
You don't got to defend
like
them.
10 minutes. No, I'm saying he was in movies for like the movies he was in there for no longer than 10 minutes combined out of all the movies he was in there. So he never had to be on set 24 hours a day. He never had the same connection with the actors that Chadwick Boseman had with the ones he was working with.
Now it's the connection that matters, right? So
no,
the death and the emotional connection while he was still alive is stronger for Chadwick Boseman with his cast and crew, which he was on set with for a 4-month shoot. That was enough to not, because you're going off the emotion. You're not going off of whether it's right or wrong to recast a death. You're going off the emotions of the people involved.
No, I'm going off of because I'm not saying it's right or wrong to recast or not recast, but what they thought was right was to not recast him, and the reason why is because they
couldn't see another actor. They said they couldn't see somebody else because that's my friend.
That's their brother. That's their friend. Exactly. Right. So people handle things differently. I will handle a death totally different than you will. Now,
bro, you will handle a death differently the day that he died than compared to 9 months later, and they made the decision quickly.
That is false. Chill. You can't determine how much time it's going to take for you to get over someone's dying.
I can determine that the further removed you are from the death, the clearer your conscience would be when you make the decisions. I can confirm that.
No, that you can't confirm that either, right? You can confirm that your mind will sooner or later get over it. But you can't determine if it's going to take 9 months, if it's going to take a year, if it's going to take 2 years, if it's going to take 5 years. Maybe you never get over it. So for an example, my mom, when my father died, right, she moved on. She did her life. She lived her life, but she never got over that.
Was she in a worse condition the day after he died compared to 3 years after he died? Yes, she was worse earlier. And then things and she kind of laughed and she smiled things off. And she, went with her. I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk about your mom this way at all. I know you don't mean it, but I know I don't mean anything. But I'd rather not do this. It's fine. Like if we disagree with this point, I can drop it here. I'd rather just continue the video too.
No problem. Yeah. I'm just saying personally, I just think and take my mom out of it, whatever. I just think some people take longer, and yes, it does get better over time. But let's say, even 5 years down the line, you may still sit on a holiday and cry. You may do that 10 years down the line. You may not do it all the time, but you may have those moments 10 years after the person died where you're sitting down there still crying because they're dead.
Sure. As someone who didn't know Kobe Bryant, I remember when the 3-year happened, it was popping up on my feed 3 years since he died. And I was like, I sat down, I really thought about it, like, wow.
Yeah.
It came back. But it's not like I didn't live the last 3 years, like I lived them. Even the day he died, I was kind of shook. It's not like I didn't laugh the entire day. Like I still did other things, but I was shook. And time passes and it heals, and then I make decisions. But I think the moment I learned Kobe Bryant died, I don't think I was in a good position to make a decision on something meaningful in my life, like anything meaningful. I wasn't right to make a decision. I was in the like shock of it. I was in let me confirm this. I was in the hold on, like how are people? How is this happening? How could he? What? And I was just you know how it is after somebody dies.
Mhm.
And I'm saying that however long it takes for you to have that heal is how long they should have waited before they even decided to make a decision about the franchise. They should really have waited and thought about it. But Nate Moore has said in an interview on Ringerverse that it was a quick decision.
That I don't agree with. I mean, that I do agree with 100%. I agree with you. They could have waited. They could have took their time. It did not need to come out when it came out, you know,
Great.
because it wasn't even like it was integral to the bigger MCU story, right? So yeah, I agree with you. They could have waited.
Like they did with
Absolutely.
Dumbledore, bro. Like,
Oh, they recasted it
One.
quick.
I can't believe this Dumbledore part about. Do you want to talk about Dumbledore?
No. You can pass that. I'll just say this though. You could pop this in though. You see how bored Roberto looks at this point?
Bruh, he looked bored.
Yeah, because Roberto's not really into the pop culture stuff. So at that point, Roberto's just like, all right, I'm good. I'm out.
Have any of you guys watched the Best Man final chapters yet?
Have any of you guys watched the Best Man final chapters? Crickets. Exactly. It's about the reach. This character is known everywhere. More amount of possibilities to do racial healing and familiarization for audiences who don't see enough people with that skin tone. They didn't watch that movie either. That's the point. It's because it's the best.
That is the problem, that nobody watched the movie. That is the problem. It's not has to do with reach, because we knew it was coming out. People know, Black people know these movies are coming out. They have the streaming service, they can see it there. The problem is they're not watching it, right? And that is the biggest issue, right? Because if they don't start watching these movies, all we're gonna get is T'Challa. That's all we're gonna get. They're not gonna feel like it's going to be important enough to make Black movies and Black stories, right? And that's the problem. That's the problem.
Watch your Black movies, everybody. What's coming up in the theaters? Creed 3. I mean, not that that's a positive thing because it's a dude coming out of jail. So, you know, there could be better, but let's check that one out and make sure that
But the lead of it is a family man, married, father, you know, doesn't cheat and stuff like that. So you have the positive representation there.
Good enough for me. I'm going to be there in the cinema, and so should you.
First day.
Maybe you should switch genres of movies, and then you can get the Black representation there because it's there, right? You guys just don't like the genre it's in. The Woman King was great Black representation, but no one wanted to.
Yo, I'm not about to argue The Woman King, which is the next thing we talk, and I'm not about to argue John Stewart Green Lantern is the next one. I think that was the last thing in the video. So I'll close this out, unless you want to say something.
Yeah, because I don't think we got to the part, but the only other thing I wanted to just correct on was you talking about there only being one Black person in The Lion King.
When there's an opportunity for a voice acting role, oh, we can do Black people, sure. The first Lion King didn't have Black actors, voice actors, except for Rafiki. Except for Rafiki in the 90s, guys. We got to be more sensitive to these things. We have to be, quote unquote, we got to be woke in its correct context. So what do you got to say about this Lion King part, Anzo?
All right. So first off, you said there was only one Black person in The Lion King, and we're not talking about the remake. We're talking about the original, right? And I'm like, no, you're absolutely wrong with that. So what I did is I went online and I said, let me go check the original Lion King. We have Robert Guillaume. He played Rafiki, right? You also have James Earl Jones, who played Mustafa. Okay. You have Whoopi Goldberg, who played Shenzi.
Oh, the hyena.
Yes. You have Junior Weaver, who played Simba. And to be honest with you, this guy made his mother made him make the smartest move. He took percentage in this movie instead of getting the pay that he did. So that was good. You also have Nikita Kalam, who played Nala.
Oh.
Chiwetel Ejiofor, he was in it. They don't say who he played though.
Actually, I think he played in the sequels. That wasn't the first one.
Okay, yeah, they probably put the sequel in there too as well. All right. But yeah, those were the ones that played in the original.
Yeah, James Earl Jones and Whoopi Goldberg. I remember that one.
Whoopi Goldberg, Robert Guillaume, and there's one I missed. Madge Sinclair played Sarabi.
So Sarabi the mom.
Yeah.
Sarabi. So look, this is the thing though. Yeah, so I'm wrong if I said that's the only black actor, voice actor. But there was something that they made Rafiki, that baboon, a black character. Now that's a bit much. Okay, Mufasa, sure. But like you're gonna go ahead and say, you know what we should do for this character? Black. And no one will notice. We noticed.
Well, okay. Yes, they made the black guy the baboon, but they also made the black guy the king. James Earl Jones was the king. And then his son, who was black too, ended up becoming the king. So yeah, you get the monkey, you get the baboon, but you also get the king as well.
They cancel each other out.
Pretty much, you know. But the point is that it seems like there's just as much black people in the original that there was in the remake.
Yeah. Yeah. So Seth Rogen played Pumbaa, and a couple of Anyways, this has gone way too long. We're very happy that you guys chilled with us, because right now it's at 1 hour and 43 minutes of recorded content. We will bring that down to whatever it is right now. Thank you all for watching. Onzo's channel is Bigford Entertainment, like it says down there, and you should subscribe to him because he's got conversations that are epic. And same with LB. If you go look at his last 10 videos, I guarantee you're going to agree with 9 of them. Unless you're a bigot, then I don't guarantee that.
Facts. And I appreciate having this conversation with you. It's always great to have these conversations, man, you know. And I think the best part about it is at least, you know, we can have a civil conversation about it. Whether we agree or not, we're having a civil conversation. We're going to end the stream, laugh, say good night, and then talk tomorrow or whatever. So
no, we're going to end the stream this way. Tabernacle.